Well, good afternoon, everyone, or morning, everyone, whatever time it is. I just found out that I was live. I was trying to get on and make sure that the audio was working. And so welcome to our post-breakthrough experience here. And I'm hoping you're able to hear me and see me in this special session that I'm going to do. I'd like to, first of all, thank you for joining us. I see some people coming in from various places. France. I don't see where their locations are from, but I'm seeing people coming in. So first of all, thank you for joining me. I have one primary intention here today, and that is to add some more in-depth information post-breakthrough that allows you to get the most out of the experience and to transition you into doing the empowerment of all 7 areas of life. So because I have a short period of time, I'd like to get right to it. I will, at the end of the presentation, I'll let you know about other opportunities that are available. I'll be mentioning also about my program called the Prophecy Experience, and also be doing hopefully some Q&A if I'm able to get the Q&A come through here. I'm assuming you're able to hear me, so I haven't got the feedback, but I'm assuming that's the case. So I want to address something, some content that will be valuable to you in each of the 7 areas of life. So that way you get the most out of the breakthrough experience. And I'd like to start with the mental area. We're going to go mental, vocational, financial, family, social, physical, and spiritual. And I'd like to outline and go in a little bit more in depth about the conscious, unconscious, subconscious, superconscious mind for a moment. When you are in your immanent mind, as I describe, your animal mind, and you're perceiving things through a subjective bias and judging things, and you're perceiving, let's say, something you seek, something you infatuate with, something you admire, and you're conscious of the upsides, but you're unconscious of the downsides. You've split your full consciousness into halves. If you're resenting something and you're conscious of the downsides and unconscious of the upsides, again, you're subjectively biasing your interpretation and you're filtering your reality and you're only seeing half the equation. Real mastery of life is balancing the equation, having accountability, which is bringing a balance sheet to your mind and awareness. So as long as you put people on pedestals or put people in pits, infatuate with them or resent them or admire or despise them, you're dividing your consciousness up. While you're in the actual judgment live, you've got a division between what you're conscious of and unconscious. And that can go all the way to extremes if you're really subjective bias, which I had an experience of even yesterday of somebody, that you have extreme upsides and 0 downsides. So you have all up, no down. Or you can go the other extreme, all down, no up. And in that case, you have what we call all or nones, absolutisms. These absolutisms are extremely rigid and very inflexible and very black and white in thinking, etc. But either case, if you're there and you're having some ratio of perception that are imbalanced and you've divided your full conscious up into conscious and unconscious halves, the moment you go on to the next judgment or the next perception and leave that judgment and kind of put it behind you, that is stored in your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is storing all previous conscious and unconscious splits. And those subconscious mind, which is showing up in many of the primitive reactions in our body, because we need that. When we're out as an animal and we're avoiding predator and seeking prey, we need the subjective bias with a positive bias to assume, kind of a false positive bias, to assume that that's a predator, because if we, for some reason, act too neutral about it, it could eat us. And then we assume that's a prey. And so if we don't have it, we starve. So when our amygdala and our lower immanent mind, our animal mind, we definitely have these subjective biases taken to all or nones as a protective mechanism, with survival mechanism from predator and prey, to make sure we get the prey, make sure we avoid the predator. But when we're not being under threat, we're not hungry, and we're going back into our executive center, and we're living by our highest priorities, and we're more objective and more balanced, we have a more balanced view, a full consciousness. We embrace the hero and the villain, the saint and the sinner, the positive, the negative, the infatuated and resentful, all in one, and we see both sides. I think you remember in break, so I asked you about the person's always this or always that, or never this, or the reverse, always the opposite and never this. You never have certainty about it. But when you see that the person has both sides, you have certainty. So when you're not under a fight or flight mechanism or rest and digest mechanism, and you're in your executive center and you're seeing things balanced, you have full consciousness. When you have full consciousness, I'm going to call that the superconscious. That's when you have illumination. That's when you're in the angelic mind, the transcendental mind, the reflective mind, not the reflexive mind. And that is a spiritual awareness. It's a soul, state of unconditional love. You're not judging. It's transcendent. It's sometimes called cosmic conscious or, super conscious, spiritual conscious. That state stores all equilibrations and all wise and loving perceptions. So the moment you equilibrate the mind and have equanimity and true objectivity, you store that in the superconscious mind or soul, but has later been or earlier called soul. And whatever you're having an imbalanced perspective, it's stored in the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind causes us to 200 to 800 milliseconds before we're even aware of things, we're causing us to react because of associations we make. And so that's why anything stored in the subconscious mind is going to run our lives, irrespective of space and time, until we finally bring them into integration and put them in the soul. The soul stores our unconditional love, you might say, the state of unconditional love, soul. And the other stores our emotional baggage. And the emotional baggage is what most people are reacting from without even realizing it, because it causes a reaction before you have time to think. Because those emotional reactions are there to protect you and thrive. So as long as you have lopsided perceptions, you're going to have that animal nature running your life. And it takes no effort to have that, but it takes effort to transcend it. And that's what the Demartini method was for. The purpose of it is to take those infatuations and resentments that were occupying space and time in your mind and finding the other side, waking up the unconscious, bringing them into equilibrium, liberating yourself, get into superconscious mind so you can live by your telos, your highest value, and you can live a self-actualized transcendent life. You might say a self-actualized, as Maslow described. So that was the whole purpose of the breakthrough experience. That method was to help you take the subconscious mind and wake it up into the superconscious state. Because I believe that any area of your life you don't empower, you're going to be overpowered. And you're not going to be empowered as long as you're judging things, because that runs you. Because anything you infatuate and resent occupies space and time in your mind, runs you. Anything you love, you run. So if you want to master your life, that's the purpose of the Demartini method. That's why I put the breakthrough experience together, was to create a science that's reproducible, that can liberate people from their subconsciously stored baggage and emotional things that are skewed, subjectively biased states, and liberate them and free it up. So the subconscious stores all previous conscious and unconscious splits. When you're active, engaged in a judgment, you have a conscious and unconscious division. But when you actually integrate those and see the synthesis and synchronicity of opposites and transcend it, rise above the paradox, if you will, as Einstein said, you now have the superconscious mind. And it is the leader that goes there. It is the master that goes there. They're masters of their destiny because what they say they do, instead of victims of their history because they're victims of their past. So I just wanted to make sure that was a bit more clear, and to also just to give that depth, a little bit more depth. I'd like to talk now about, instead of just the mental, I'd like to talk about vocational. Some people, are dedicated to raising families and dedicated to social causes, and they may not run a business. So you wonder, why are there 7 areas of life that we're here to master? Why are we here to be on our spiritual quest for an inspired mission? Why would we want to wake up our genius and contribution to the universe, which occurs every time we dissolve our subconscious mind? We're in our superconscious mind where we're innovative and creative and original and making a difference. But if we go around the wheel, we also have vocation, and vocation serves a purpose. Whether we're raising children and we're creating a product for the world, which is called children, or we're in a social cause and we're creating some sort of idea or service to the world, we're still in business. In business, there's certain principles that in business that teach us things that, unless we're actually understanding business, we're holding back our empowerment in life. So we're here to master that too. And the way we master that is basically to prioritize what we do on a daily basis and to make sure that we are sticking to the highest priority actions. Now, We cannot live a self-actualized, inspired life very easily without being of service to people in a fair exchange, sustainable fair exchange format that allows us to have an income and doing something that's inspiring to us and yet fills the needs of others. So we have a combination of other worth that we're actually valuing, the people are valuing us, and self-worth because we're valuing ourselves because we're doing what we love. If we do that and we master that and we have those in equilibrium and reach a state of equity between ourselves and the employees and the customers, we maximize the service, we maximize the sustainability, and we end up with the greatest net worth. See, if we're narcissistic and we project our needs onto other people, we don't usually have people wanting to buy our service. If we minimize ourselves and sacrifice our profits and our cost or whatever, our fees for that service, we don't go very far. But if we have fair exchange where we do a service matches what people want, and then we also get rewarded exactly what we feel it's worth, now we have a sustainable state that people want to continue to do business with us. Narcissism is not sustaining. Altruism is non-sustainable. Any of you have been in a situation, you've been narcissistic, you eventually get humbled, and if you're altruistic, you get resentful. You eventually have to learn to find a fair exchange that's sustainable. And so mastering that, mastering business, you get rewarded economically by the master of that. But that mastery is also the same thing that is part of spirituality and the same thing that's part of mind development. It's equanimity. That same equanimity is needed for business transactions and for achievement and for leadership. And mastering that ability and learning how to delegate and giving other people the opportunity to do what they love doing while you're doing what you love doing helps the economy, helps everybody get to be something inspiring, and you get freed. And so the mastery of business is an absolutely essential component of really a mastered life. And if we're not able to delegate and we're not able to do what really is inspiring to us in a way that serves to generate the income to pay for the delegation, we're trapped. And we end up doing low priority things and we devalue ourselves and we end up having Monday morning blues and Wednesday hump days and thank God it's Fridays and week friggin' ends. And our vacation is split. We end up schizophrenic, working our butt off to earn money so we can then blow it, escaping it on a vacation or buying consumable objects to try to feel better about ourselves because we're not building a brand around what's inspiring to us. And it's important to realize that a business is really a mastery of all areas of life. If you can master business, you can master, and it spills over into master your mind because it takes the mind-centeredness to do it and prioritization to do it and creativity to do it. It also takes inspiration to do it. It also helps you understand how to manage people, which helps you in your family and social skills and areas. And it also is physically fit because people that are doing what they love, they don't have as much stress. They found out that people could work 18, 20 hours a day. If they're doing something they really love to do, they don't get stressed and they don't have these cytokines and inflammatory responses in the brain and heart problems. But if a person is not inspired by what they do, they got distress and illness is presumed. And then they feel like I got to take a break. And that's the thing. And people are always wanting a break because they're not engaged, they're not inspired. So it's important to prioritize what you're doing at work, link every job description you have to what is truly meaningful to you. So you can't wait to get up in the morning and be of service to people. So people can't wait to get your service. If you do that, you'll master another part of life. And any area of your life you don't empower, people overpower you. And if you don't empower yourself in business, people will tell you what to do. But if you empower it, you'll tell you what to do. And then you'll be kind of a self-actualized. You put that together with a clear mind that's not distracted by all the noise of infatuation, resentments, and you got two big powers on your favor now. The third one is financial. And again, this goes back to what I was just mentioning about self-worth. If you do not have a perfect equilibrium between the service and the payment, it goes backwards. For instance, if you do a service and you feel like, you've given your side, but they didn't pay, you feel incomplete and you eventually don't want to do business with them. And they feel guilty and you feel resentful. But if you end up doing a service and they paid the whole thing up front and you didn't deliver the goods and didn't live up to it, you feel altruistic. And then you feel like, well, they don't want to do business with you and you feel guilty. And so what's happening is it's nature's forcing us to get into equilibrium to master our wealth. And really our wealth, people have all kind of emotional charges around wealth, but really wealth is a is sort of a reflection of how you run your life. If you're mastering your life, you're going to master that area too. And you're going to give yourself permission to reward yourself for the services. And your self-worth goes up whenever you're doing high priority things, and it goes down when you're doing low priority things. So wealth is a byproduct of living by priority and living by your objective centers, your executive centers, by serving people, by caring about people. I said at a church, a few years back, that if you're in poverty, it's because you're not caring about humanity. The reality is, if you don't care about somebody and you don't care to serve and fill needs of people, it's kind of unrealistic to ever expect any economics. So, I have people a lot of times that they keep looking for magic, quick get rich schemes and fix things to get wealthy fast. And maybe there's some little strategies out there if you want to go and get specialized knowledge in trading and things that can expedite that. But I know people that even do that and get good income, but they still don't manage their money and have anything to show for it. So that's based on your own self-worth, and your self-worth is about clearing all the shames you've had in your life and about being prioritized and about making sure that you do a service that's fair and exchange, and then structuring it electronically where you're not in the way. Emotions interfere with wealth building, but electronic structures make it. 36 years ago, I set up an automated savings program that went up and up and up and up, automated. It was no emotion about it, it just happened. And because of that, I've been blessed because I didn't have emotions around it. I just structured it, got an objective, put the thing together, and just did it. And that's what happens. And that's the value of being in the executive center. You don't find a lot of animals wealthy, but you find humans that are, grounded. As Buffett says, until you manage your emotions, don't expect to manage wealth. Well, the very first thing I mentioned about infatuation, resentments, those are all the emotions that interfere with wealth. In the financial industry, the infatuation, resentment is called greed and fear. It's got a different language, but it's the same principle. And if you can't manage your emotions, you'll let greed get away with you or fear get away with you, and you'll overspend when the market's up and then oversell when the market's down. And you'll overbuy, in other words. And in the process of doing it, you'll deleverage or over-leverage yourself. And then in the process of doing that, you undermine your wealth building. So it's so important to master the method. People say, why do we sit there in the breakthrough experience and spend hours doing this method? Because I've already thought through all the 7 areas of life and distilled down over the last 46 years all the things that could help a person empower those areas, and narrowed it down. And in one tool, that method, it actually helps activate all 7. I designed that because that way I could get the most impact on people's lives in really the shortest period of time. And then they've got it for life. That's why I took the time to do that. So you want to make sure that you're doing fair exchange with people. That's the key to financial wealth, and structuring it electronically and strategically, and be objective about it and transcend the emotions about it, do the method on it. If you perceive you gained something, you want to do the method and neutralize the gain like we did in the grief process on Sunday at Breakthrough. And if you think you lost something, do the same thing. Because anytime you have a perception of gain and loss, you're not masterful. I said the master lives in a world of transformation, never the illusions of gain and loss. So instead of looking at one or the other, you're actually looking down the center and knowing that those are 2 mechanisms that are changing forms, and your values are dictating those forms. So the next area is social. And, it's interesting when I go up to people in the breakthrough experience or in my prophecy program, either way, because in there I address this on much more bigger scale. I explain to people that there's a conservation law. And the conservation law, which is a symmetry law, Nether's theorem, that basically says that you cannot build something without destroying something, or destroy something without kind of leading to something being built. So what we're doing is we're transforming the world. If I go build a building, I got to take resources somewhere and destroy something in order to build it. I'm moving it from one place to the other and changing one structure to another. And we sometimes live in a fantasy, that we build without destroying, or we're kind without cruel, or we're nice without mean, or we're positive without negative, or we're peace without war. And as you know, in Breakthrough, and in Prophecy Program, I bust that myth, because that's probably the biggest myth that blocks people, because then they get trapped trying to be a one-sided person and futilely going after a side that they can't get and trying to avoid a side they can't avoid. And they're putting all this energy into something that's not even obtainable. And that's the source of the passionate suffering that people have. But when you finally realize that you're both a hero and a villain, a saint and a sinner, a virtue and a vice, a builder and destroyer, and you're a transformer, it takes a lot of pressure off you. You don't live in this fantasy of this this piety fantasy about who you're supposed to be, and you give yourself permission to be grounded in who you are and say, I'm not a nice person, or I'm not a mean person. I'm a human being with a set of values that if you challenge my values, I can be pretty mean. You support my values, I can be pretty nice. I can be a pussycat or a tiger. So the same thing in almost any pair of opposites that human behavior displays, we're all those things. I have yet to find something I'm not. And so in the process of doing it, by owning both of those is where you wake up your leader. You know, you have people in America, we have a leader called Donald Trump, and he's both a hero and a villain, a saint and a sinner, a virtue and a vice. Different people have different views about him because there's a spectrum of values across the world, and each one sees him from their perspective. And some will see him as a hero and some will villain. And the truth is he's both in people's value systems. And if you can't honor both, you can't rise to the top as a leader. The leader is the one who can embrace both sides of themselves and doesn't have to get rid of half themselves and doesn't need improvement. That's a big false, the whole self-improvement method and self-improvement movement, I challenge, because that's a moral language. It's assuming you're going to be a one-sided person. You're going to get less of this and going to get more of this. But I've asked thousands of people, million people probably around the world, how many of you still have negative thinking? And they all put their hands up. And I go, well, have you been trying to get rid of it for the last 30 or 40 or 50 years of your life? Well, yeah. Have you got anywhere? No. Are you both? Yeah. Are you both nice and mean still? Yeah. Are you sometimes kind and sometimes cruel? Yeah. Sometimes you're honest and sometimes you're dishonest? Yeah. So why are you trying to be something you're not? Why don't you just honor what you are? People think the perfection is one side, and the fastest way to disempower people is to promote a fantasy of one-sidedness, when in fact is the perfection of your life is a human being with a set of values, and they're going to respond to your environment with both ways. And that's not evil or bad or good. It's not a moral language. It's just human behavior. And I'm more interested in the truth about human behavior than the fantasies and social idealisms that people put on people, that trap people, that make people feel proud and shamed and put on a facade in their life instead of just honor their life. And so if you want to be a true leader, you've got to be able to honor both. And that's why I did the breakthrough experience, to give you that method. In my prophecy program, I take that to a whole new level. I show on massive scales the peace and war that's going on, not just within yourself, because I've never met a person that didn't have both calm and turmoil. I've never met a family couple without calm and turmoil. I've never met a family with kids without calm and turmoil. Never met a group of people without calm and turmoil, of people at work or any society without both sides. It's fantasy to think we're going to have a one-sided world. It's childish. It's a sign of a wound of the past that you're trying to escape with a dissociation. And if you want to be a leader, you got to embrace both sides. You got to participate in creating and destroying both sides. And the process of doing that, then you have mastery. I always say at the level of the soul, nothing's missing in you. At the level of the senses, things appear to be missing in you. And those things you appear to be missing are things you're too proud or too humble to admit inside your life that's there. And we go around denying that instead of honoring that. And I have no interest in getting rid of any part of myself. I found that futile. I've never gotten rid of anything. It surfaces all the time, the things I thought I was going to improve myself and get rid of. So I didn't do that. I'm more about honoring the entire you. And for loving who you are. I asked millions of people, how many people want to be loved for who they are, not for who they think they're supposed to be by somebody, projecting evaluations and trying to get rid of half of them, improving people. People just want to be loved for who they are. I do, you do. And that's the greatest thing we can do, is just honor that. But we can't do that as we're striving for a one-sided fantasy. And we can't do trying to get rid of our nightmares. But we can do it by embracing that they're synchronously joined together in a conservation principle, and we can love our life. And I want that to be emphasized, because we sometimes don't. In my prophecy program, I go through examples at all scales, from the individual all the way up to the highest level of global interaction. And someday, interstellar and interplanetary interaction, we're going to have peace and war at another level in the future. Another 100 years, 200 years from now, we'll probably be having satellites and transports and between planets, and there'll be groups and clusters. They'll be having peace and war on a bigger scale. I've seen in the evolution of these two pairs of opposites, from nomadic individuals to communities, kinships, townships, society, cities, town cities, states, nations, and now world and beyond. I've seen the pairs of opposites there, the law of heuristic escalation applied to it, the order and chaos and the support and challenge of nature, which is necessary for remodeling and adapting and changing. And it's necessary. And we live in a delusion thinking we're going to get rid of half of that. And we have no evidence anywhere in history of that gotten rid of. In fact, today we saw live, just 24 hours, we've seen a live demonstration in the Middle East, another outbreak, because we think we're going to get rid of some part of our life that's an absolutely essential component that's going to help us evolve. So in my breakthrough experience, I wanted to initiate that. Here, I want to just catalyze it further. In prophecy, I want to take it to the level so you can understand it and really master it. Because until you can embrace both sides of yourself, don't expect to lead. You can't embrace your villain side, your other side, and own that side too. The part that you think is shameful and the part you think is prideful work together to keep you who you are. And if you get one over the other surfaces, just to get you back into the center. Our centered self is where we have our power. That's why I teach the programs. That's why I'm doing all my programs, Breakthrough, this program, Prophecy, all of them. In fact, every program I have in the 76 courses in the Concourse of Wisdom of my school is for that, to help master a person's life. The next one is physical. And every time you have an infatuation or resentment and you activate your parasympathetic nervous system or sympathetic nervous system, you're activating what they call acetylation and methylation of the histones and DNA at the cell level. And that's causing, in a sense, a change in expression of your genes. So even though you have a genetic potential, what's actually displayed can be modified by your emotions. And your emotions are epigenetic altering gene expression. See, at one time you had a single cell called the zygote. It divided into 2 cells, 4 cells, 8 cells, 16 cells, etc. Eventually, after a number of divisions, organogenesis started and the organs were starting to develop and differentiation of tissues were developing. In order to do that, they had to have signal molecules from cells come online according to a sequence. And they realized that their signal molecules can be altered by environmental perceptions. And this is where epigenetics came about, because they realized that the cells all have the same genes, but they don't express the same genes. Otherwise, all our cells would look the same, would be a blob of tissue like a tumor. But if we realize epigenetics is there, then our perception of the environment is literally altering our creation of our life and our physiology. And every symptom in the body is a feedback mechanism guiding us back to center and balance our perspective. In columns 6 and 13 of the Demartini method in Breakthrough, I had you go to a moment where and when you perceive this individual displaying or demonstrating the specific trait, action, inaction that you admired or despised most. You there? Great. Where are you? When are you? What exactly are they doing? What's the content? And what exactly is the context? Why are they doing it? And then who are they doing it to? And that exact moment, who is doing the opposite? Context specific, anti-content, but context specific, who's doing the opposite? And I showed you that there was a pair of opposites, real or virtual, between one or many, male or female, close or distant, virtual or real. But there's always something there that's balancing the mind. The mind is intending this telos example, this objective state, this equanimity state, its spiritual growth state, because maximum growth and development occurs at this state. So it's leading to that because it's the most efficient, effective pathway to fulfill the greatest amount of voids with the greatest amount of values in our life, the most fulfilling we can do. It's the eudaimonic path that Aristotle described. The moment we actually see the synthesis and synchronicity of opposites and have a glimpse of the hidden order or in our apparent chaos, we move towards mastery. We move towards a higher awareness. And we end up seeing what I call the divine order, the hidden order, the implicate order, the magnificent design. And the moment we do, our physiology heals because we see the balance, the synchronous balance. The second we polarize and we see one side without the other, that skewed subjective perception, that conscious and unconscious split, creates epigenetic alterations to create symptoms in our body to make sure we get the symptoms to wake us up to look for the other side. The symptoms of their body are trying to wake up our unconscious to make us conscious so we can see both sides at the same time. Once we see both sides at the same time, we have healing. That's why people have been sent to the breakthrough experience by physicians and psychiatrists and psychologists for healing, because the fact is people who integrate their mind and see both sides of things heal. In my prophecy program, I take that and elaborate what is epigenetics and how does DNA work and how does the regulatory systems function and how we actually manifest that illness and how we demanifest that illness by centering ourselves again, and how our epigenetics works. And what's interesting, how our perceptions are running this thing. We have control over our perceptions, decisions, and actions, and our perceptions literally affect our epigenetics. And in our brain, that alters the plasticity in our brain. You know, it's like a tree. I mentioned this in Breakthrough. If a tree is growing to the light, and there's plenty of light, the branch gets stronger. If there's a tree that sees shade and it can't get to the light and it gets overshadowed by another branch that's stronger, it eventually dies out. Well, the same in our life. Any perception, any decision, and any action we take that assists us in fulfilling our telos, our highest value, where we're most objective and most equanimous and most balanced, most expanded in awareness and greater self-worth, the moment we do, the brain, the glial cells of the brain will myelinate those nerve pathways, will myelinate that, bring nutrients to those nerves, and cause neurogenesis, additional nerves, to maximize brain function, to grow brains. Our brain grows when we're congruent and living congruently with our brain and our highest value. And our physiology, neuroplastically, is remodeling itself to maximize our human potential. And our neuroplasticity is an expression of us living congruently. And if we live congruently, our epigenetics doesn't have to create the symptoms, and our neuroplastic brain allows us to move into our executive center where we have governance and mastery. And when we do, our telomeres on our genes actually with telomerase enzyme go up, and we literally live longer in order to fulfill a greater vision over a longer period of time. So giving ourselves permission to live by congruency, by our highest values, and not subordinating and conforming to outer influences that are everybody's around us projecting their values on us, by liberating that, we give ourselves freedom to go after what we really want, and we heal our body. And so our symptoms are really feedback. In fact, symptoms in all 7 areas of our life are feedback mechanisms to guide us to our telos. Our mind lets us know when we're emotional, we're unfulfilled. And when we do, the second we get back to priority and what's really meaningful, we get fulfilled again. If we fill our day with high priority actions and inspires, it doesn't fill up with low priority distractions, it don't. That's occurring in our mind, it's occurring in our business, in our economics. If we don't have a value on wealth and well-being and wholeness, we won't have it. Money circulates to the economy from those who value it the least to those who value it most. And you value it when you do fair exchange. You feel valuable when you do something with true fair exchange. So all the 7 areas of life are feedback mechanisms. And when I talk about healing, I'm not just a healer of the body, I'm a healer of the 7 areas, because the method was designed for that. All of my programs are designed for that. Prophecy is designed to help you master and lead all those areas, and to take all those things I'm just mentioning now and in Breakthrough to another level so you can play a bigger game. I don't know of anybody that wants to get up in the morning and says, I want to be less aware, I want to be less fulfilled in business, less financially remunerated, less fulfilled in relationship, less social influence. I want to feel less vital and well in my body, less inspired. People want to grow. There's a natural calling inside us and yearning to expand. That's what all this is for, to master our life, to lead our life, become authentic, to be prophets of our destiny. People say, why did you call my program Prophecy? Not because of some religious idea, other than the idea that the great prophets were the people that had wisdom and they were the ones guiding the rest. I wanted you to be a prophet. I wanted you to be master of your destiny. I wanted you to be inspired by what you want to create in your life. And I wanted to live that way too. I'm not an altruist, sacrificing me for you. I'm not a narcissist, just sacrificing you for me. I learned from Zig Ziglar and Ed Tellison that if I help you get what you want to get in life, we both win. It's that simple. I get what I want to get in life. And I want you to carry that torch and do the same thing. That's why I put this webinar together, and also Prophecy and Breakthrough. All these things are for that purpose. And the next one is spiritual. And spirituality to me, I've been studying comparative religions 46 years and really went into it around 28, 27. I really dabbled. I found this text that was on the religions of the world. It had 3,000 different religions on it. It's a big text. And I started reading it, and it was small print, and it had a lot of great stuff on there. On some of the great religions that have 2 billion followers or more, it had, 30, 40, 50 pages on it. And the ones that had smaller ones that had 50,000 people or less, and a little cult or something like that, it had smaller amount of information. But I studied it looking for the common threads, the most universal principles for the calling. Because obviously around the world, people have this yearning and need for some sort of a spiritual expression. And they have belief systems about their longevity or immortality. And I wanted to know what the essence of that was. What drove that? Why is it there? How did it anthropologically develop in man? And what were the fears driving the need for that? And I put that together, and I really love sharing that in the Prophecy One experience, because it's basically a evolution of religious construct, a syncretism and a synthesis over the centuries and millenniums of how man has evolved, or humanity has evolved. And it's just inspiring to me. I love that topic. And since about age 27 or so, when I really started getting into that, and I was going to, actually before that, because it was really 24, I was really doing it. No, 20, before that, I was 20, I was going to different religious groups in a week. So really started writing about it at that time though. And I found there's a common thread, and I wanted to find it. I realized that the moral structure that people get trapped in, that they're striving for a one-sided world, and there's a higher transcendent morality that's there. And most of us are caught subordinating to some leader that's, in a sense, perceived as an oppressor to the oppressed. And we basically subordinate to that leader and take their morals and ethics and their values and then try to live by it. And it doesn't work because we can't. We live by our own values. And then what we end up doing, we feel like, ashamed, or we feel less than what we are because we're comparing ourselves to other people that we're subordinating to. And the fastest way to disempower a group of people is to propose and promote and impose an idealism of one-sidedness onto a people that they can't live by. That's the fastest way to make them feel disempowered and the person promoting it empowered, because now you feel that they're dependent on that again. It's a classical mechanism of autocracy and tyranny in that respect. And so I'm not a promoter of those other than stages of moral and conscious awareness. And I try to explain in this moment here, and also in my prophecy where I elaborate on it fully, of how important it is to be able to go transcend and go direct to a true human will matches, you could say, divine will. A moment where you have equanimity, a moment where you're not trying to change you relative to others or others relative to you. You're not trying to fix them or them fixing you. When you're just in a state of grace, and then you have a pure connection to the universe, you will. You get access to the synchronicity and synthesis of opposites, the column 6 and 13 of the Demartini method. You get a glimpse of that. And this is the very state that led the great spiritual prophets into their awareness. This is what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in you following somebody. It's so interesting. We follow spiritual leaders that are the people that didn't follow people. They're originators. Well, I don't know about you. I would rather get up and be the originator. I'd rather create original ideas that serve by living congruently and being inspired and seeing both sides of things and giving myself permission to stand out and not just fit in and not be just a good little boy, if you will, but to actually rise as a human being and contribute. And maybe you'll get, ridiculed. Maybe you'll get violently opposed in the process. But eventually your original ideas, like Copernicus and Galileo and these people, made their change in history. I'd rather do and give yourself permission to do that. Most people get up in the morning and they go, well, what educational system should I belong to be somebody? I got to have a name. I got to go to Harvard or something like that. Otherwise, I'm a nobody. What business should I work for so I can have security? What sport team should I belong to or be a part of? What financial security system for pension should I have? I mean, what social group, political group should I belong to? And what physical system should I take and follow? They're basically subordinating. They don't give themselves permission to go, what movement on the planet do I want to create? What educational institution do I want to found? What international corporation do I want to breed? What financial institution and charity system do I want to contribute? Or philanthropic system I want to create? What family dynasty do I want to create? What social political movement do I want to initiate? What physical sports teams do I want to own? And what spiritual construct do I want to start on the planet? They don't give themselves permission to live like that. That's what the prophecy program is about, is to try to give people permission to get out of the box and not stuck in conformity and not playing small and allowing themselves to see the possibilities that their life brings. And what happens if you master your life? That's the purpose of the Breakthrough Experience, to start that key. It's the purpose of me on this webinar today, to hopefully push you a little bit more catalyst to take action on that. Because any area of your life you don't empower, people are going to overpower. And there's no reason you have to subordinate to an irrational, outdated tradition that is actually not even something that's grounded in some cases, when you can actually think for yourself and stand on the shoulders of present giants and go to the cutting edge of awareness and take your science, your philosophical, and your spiritual and weave them together into a more profound construct, taking the greatest wisdom from all of the backgrounds and traditions and synthesizing it and stepping forward. The people who did that are the people that move life forward. So I want you to come from that perspective. And that's very inspiring. I mean, I believe that we have the capacity to do that. There's nothing in our makeup that has to stop us from doing something extraordinary and to integrate all of that. So that's why I wanted to go through and make sure I took some time for today to go through and discuss each of these 7 areas. So I just want to reiterate again that in our mind, if we don't learn how to equilibrate the mind and center ourselves and wake up our unconscious and conscious synchronously and wake up our superconscious, our subconscious is going to run us. We'll be automatons like animals running our lives in the zoo. That's average mediocrity. And animals don't usually do extraordinary things. It's the angel inside you, the messenger of light inside you, that's really the person that goes out and is a person with a mission and a message and a vision. They go out and do something. That's the executive center. That's the mission, the message, and the vision. That's the thing that's the highest value, just like I do in the value determination. That's why I have, what are you thinking about, visualizing, affirming the most? That's where I want you to be the messenger, the visionary, and the missionary. That's what's totally doable. I've seen young people who get going and they start at a young age and they accelerate, do extraordinary things. But I've seen also people at 70s turn around and do something extraordinary in the last decades of their life. So I just know that they do it. And in business, you want to prioritize, you want to delegate, you want to get onto it, you want to clarify the mission, you want to go by what your life is demonstrating and not living in fantasies, and go out and make sure you're committed to serving. The people that actually are dedicated to serving are the people that get the farthest in life. That's the reason in prophecy, I go through and cover under the prophecy day, I have 250 pages on forms and applications and things you can do to make sure your business is thriving and growing, and things and principles that stand the test of time in business. All those areas, you deserve to know that and grow that and expand that, because that's your nature. And there's no reason why you can't. I started out living on the streets and living in a tent at one time. Now I get to travel the world and I get to meet amazing different people. I've got opportunities that are coming at me in ways that most people would dream of. And I know that that's because of applying the principles that I'm outlining in Breakthrough and this program and Prophecy and all the programs I do, because it works. If you stick with it, it's I see people sometimes come to a seminar and say, oh yeah, but I've done that. But the people I know that have actually made the difference is they applied it. Not just attendee, not just a spectator, they were a participant and they got engaged and they went and applied it. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this little webinar, to increase the probability of you applying what you just got and now applying it further and taking the next step. Because if you start the step and then you wait and you go, oh, there's a cliff there, I'm not going to go, and you don't build a little bridge across the cliff, you stop. But if you see the next thing that can build the bridge, you want to take action on it. And also in the financial area, just know that your hierarchy of values are going to dictate your financial destiny. If you don't have a value on serving people, you don't have a value on yourself, and you don't have a value on wealth building, not going to happen. You're going to be the 99%ers instead of the 1%er. So you want to give yourself permission to go after being of service to people and inspiring people that way and giving the service. I have no problem going to work. I love doing work. I love making a difference. Probably the greatest thing that I get to do in the Breakthrough experience is to sit there on Saturday night closing people who've just done the method and having tears in their eyes. I got tears in my eyes. They see the hidden order. They're in a state of grace. They now see the open doorway. They're not holding on to the baggage. They're freed. And they let their executive center and soul speak for them for a moment and get a new possibility and a new trajectory. Now I just want them to take action on it. That's what this is for in my prophecy program. So I want people to go forward on it and keep expanding. If you're not expanding, you're shrinking. If you're not growing, and there's an old proverb, as long as you're green, you're growing. As soon as you ripen, you rot. If you don't grow, you're dying. Anything that's not expanding is contracting. So you have no choice but to really continue to go in your life and take actions. And any day you're not taking actions, other people overreact to you and over tell you what to do. And I'd rather have a full day. I keep an agenda. I learned a long time ago that if I don't fill my day with what I love, it fills up with what I don't. And so I keep that agenda going every day because I get way more done. I get to have an amazingly prosperous life that way. That's what I want for you. I want you to be able to go out and do something amazing in your life and prioritize it and structure it. And you're going to have everybody around you and people you may be subordinate to telling you how it should be, but it's you, it's your life. At the end of your life, Bonnie Ware said there's 5 regrets that most people have. And most of those regrets are a byproduct of people that didn't prioritize their life according to what their true values are, which is one of the reasons I have the Demartini value application and determination process online to give you a starting point. If you haven't done that and you're not doing that quarterly, please do that. It's going to pay off to keep focusing and making sure you're clear and prioritized. It pays off. Anytime you're doing what's really most important, you raise your self-worth, your net worth goes up as a result of it, because you're actually building momentum, and that's when you want to originate creative ideas that serve people. And the same thing socially and family, in relationships. You know, if you have a relationship with somebody, if you don't do something in their values, or that you don't feel like you're communicating in their values and they're not communicating your values, you got a alternating monologue. You don't have a loving relationship kind of go. You have to ask yourself, what is it that my partner, my children, my spouse, my boyfriend, girlfriend, or anybody for that matter that I'm in a relationship with, how specifically is what they're dedicated to serving what you're dedicated to? And answer that question 30, 40, 50, 60, 80 times. And don't stop. Just like in Breakthrough, when you took the resented trait, action, inaction, and you asked, how did it serve your highest values? You answer that over and over again until you go, thank you. When you can see what they're dedicated to is serving you, you don't need to fix them and change them. And they want to feel loved that way. And when you do that, when you love them the way they are, they turn into who you love. So if you basically can communicate that and communicate in that value system, you have a new relationship. You're not distracted by the dialogues, the alternating monologues that most people are trapped by. So you ask the question, how specifically is whatever they're dedicated to helping you fulfill what you're dedicated to? Answer that 30 to 80 times. Then how are what you dedicated to, your top 3 highest values, helping them fulfill what they're dedicated to? Do that 30 or 80 times. And don't stop until you can realize that there's nothing there except for deep respect, because you realize being around them is going to help you get what you want in life. And you're going to engage in them, and you're going to respect them and listen to them, and also communicate what you value in terms of their values, which is more of an effective communication. In the process of doing that, you expand your network. And then you know that it's not how many people that just know or heard about, but it's the people you engage in, and actually it builds your network. And your social network, the more that expands, the more opportunities you have. I mean, look at someone like Zuckerberg. He goes out and becomes a billionaire because he did something on a social networking scheme. The people we have in our network tells us where we are in life, so we can expand that and participate and serve people that way. So you want to be able to link values. And now imagine what happens if you do the Demartini method on your spouse or your partner or your children. There's no doubt in my mind that if a person will do that, not just on 3 little traits, but on every single thing that they perceive is not, it's in the way of you appreciating that person, and just clear it. It may take days or weeks, but once it's clear, you have a different relationship. If you link the values and you do the Demartini method, you'll take it further. In the prophecy program, I explain exactly what to do on that. I take it to the next level. I talk about marriages and divorces and why they occur. I talk about dating. I talk about sexuality. I talk about intimacy. I talk about social and family dynamics. I'm interested in helping you go to the next level on all that, so you can have what I call a global family. And people go, what is a global family? Well, that's where, whether they come or go, or they close or they're distant, you feel their presence. At the end of the breakthrough experience, no matter if a person was alive or dead, no matter where they are in space or time, you feel their presence when you love them. And the love of somebody gives you the freedom to come and go, and then the freedom to come and go and still be in the presence of the person. And that's the transcendent state of relationship. That's what I'm trying to get people to get to in the prophecy program and all the other programs, to help them realize that there's something more transcendent than the average bogged down craziness that you see in most of the little books on self-help books on relationships, or the self-help books on success or whatever. There's a more transcendent view, and that's what I want to share. I wanted to take the time today to stimulate that, and also do that in my prophecy program. All my programs, in fact, they're designed for that. I want you to be able to, when I was 17 years old, I was laying face down in a friggin' tent, and I lifted up from vomiting. And I remember looking out and looking around, and I'm thinking to myself, I want to do something more with my life than this. And it just so happened that shortly after that, a lady came and found me in my tent, and my life changed. She helped me clean the tent. She helped me to go to the health food store. From there, I got led to the night to meet Paul Bragg, and my life changed. And ever since then, I've been on a mission to study every friggin' thing I can get my hands on, and every field I can get my hands on, to maximize the human experience, maximize human awareness potential, the evolution of human consciousness, the mastery of the 7 areas of life. All the programs in my 76 courses are for that objective. It'd be impossible to convince me that you can't do something extraordinary. There's no way you can convince me. I just know it because I know where I've started and I know what's possible if you put the effort in. No, it's not easy. No, it's not simple. No, it's not overnight, but anything that's great. I mean, even a diamond takes, millennia to be built. Anything that's great is going to take consistent effort. And the consistent effort comes from congruency and the principles and knowing the principles that stands the test of time, and it gives you leadership and mastery. That's what I'm doing. Just like in the breakthrough experience, I said at the end, how many of you learned something here that you could have gone your whole life without learning? You'd never would have learned that information probably. And most hands go up, if not all of them. And I'm certain about that in every program I'm going to teach. I want to make sure that I've got something that's original, that's something that makes you step out of the box and get out of the conformity and give yourself permission to do you. The magnificence of who you are is far greater than any fantasies you'll impose on yourself. So pardon me for that little tangent, but I want people to know that because they sometimes I want to slap them around or whatever because they're buying into bullshit. They're living by some subordinated moralities that aren't even friggin' real, that are usually run by hypocrites, and they're not actually giving themselves permission to shine. And I want them. That's why I put prophecy together. I want them to bust through that and shatter myths and get down to it. The Nobel Prize winner Dirac said, it's not that we know so much that isn't so. I want people to transcend that bullshit that's taught and get onto something that's real. Because there's something more profound than little positive thinking and being nice all the time, being kind and suppressed and living small. There's something profound about being yourself. The magnificence of who you are is that. So anyway, I could go for an hour or two on that. So do you mind if I go to some Q&As here? Let's see if I can find them here. It says here, June kind of bit early, no. Program runs annual. There's people asking about programs. Thank you for the content, inspiring. John, when deciding on a business to create, you mentioned the people need to have a desire for it, need to be inspired to deliver the service, but how much research do you need to do to validate your service hypothesis to take the market? Well, that's a fantastic question. In my leadership principles, I say that you've got to know what your service is. You need to have specialized knowledge or surround yourself with people with specialized knowledge so you're at the cutting edge and you have efficient, effective information. That's caring. When you really want to serve, that's what it means. Serving people means doing whatever it takes to keep at the cutting edge to give them the service is. You want to make sure you can actually speak about it and be able to articulate that so they can get it and talk in their values. You want to be able to sell it in their values so they'll buy it to make the difference, making sure it meets their needs. And you want to be able to save and reward yourself for doing something wise that serves humanity. If you don't save and you don't do that, you don't have the 5 S's of power. So yeah, it is about specialized knowledge. I spent 46 years reading over 30,200 and friggin' almost 50 books now to try to have specialized knowledge to save everybody time in the process. So I'm a firm believer that specialized knowledge is essential, but you don't have to do it all yourself. You can get specialists in there to do it. I'm not so great on IT. I have IT people helping me. Thank God for them. I have people in almost different areas, people that do videos and people that do this. I don't have to know it all myself, but in the area that I'm specializing in, I feel like it's my responsibility to be at the cutting edge with it in that area, but not all areas, because I'll dilute myself in all areas, but I'll do it in the areas. And human behavior, I'll be at the cutting edge. When it comes to IT, I'll delegate that edge. And driving, I'll delegate. And cooking, I'll delegate. And cleaning rooms and things like that in hotels, I'll delegate. I do what I do. You have to fill your day with the highest priority actions if you want an inspired life. So yes, you do need specialized knowledge and deliver on that service. Hi, can you please ask the question in the Q&A so Dr. Mick can see it? I don't see it there. I don't see the question. Hold on a minute. There's some other questions here. Hello, can you please ask, no, these are questions. When is the next time this event is happening in London? That I don't know the question of. If you go to my website and tell you where all I'm going to be, because half the time I wait for my itinerary to know where I'm going next. I keep very focused and busy on what I'm doing. Welcome everyone, make sure you have a pen and paper. I don't see the questions on here, so I don't have access to the questions. So I'm not sure where these are. Let's see here. You need to click on Q&A. That's what it is. Somebody just communicated to me and helped me. Let's see if I can find that. Q&A. Okay, you're logged in from another device. Your Q&A session is inactive. There goes the IT system. I'm not sure if we can cut and paste and put some on. Maybe we can do that. I see audio video is working. Welcome everyone. I don't see Q&A for some reason. Pardon me for not sure why. This just says your Q&A session is inactive. And it says but it says here that I've clicked it. So I don't know. You're in the right place, Skype. Let's see if that helps. No, that doesn't help. Okay, let's see. Okay, now we got Q&A. Thank you. Hi, Ben. You can ask the question in this. Hello, today. I didn't get to finish the BT last year. Too stubborn about one-sidedness, and I think I have too many subconscious benefits to staying in the dependent victim state. How do I push through it? That's a great question. Thank you for that. And that's coming from Melissa D. By the way, the most magnificent thing you can do is, if you're finding yourself not doing it, is to get with myself, call our office, contact our office online, and let's get you either somebody right on our line, my daughter or on the meal, or somebody in our office to help you through and push through, or a facilitator and get you to punch through, or come back to the breakthrough experience, sit in the front this time. I'll chain you to the table, and I'll get my boxing gloves out. We'll get to work. If you'll stay there, I'll make you get through it. We'll make sure you stay with it. But if you leave, I can't help you. But the best thing to do is, because you know it's going to be to your advantage. Right now, if you're perceiving more advantage than disadvantage, if we address that, we can ask questions to change that ratio of perceptions and get you to go through it and have an intrinsic reason to doing it. So come back to the breakthrough experience. It's probably the smartest thing to do. Or go online and see if you can't get one of our people to help you through it if it's something more quickly. But I definitely don't sit there and let it run your life. What if we're having trouble doing our love list? When you're doing your love list, you want to make sure that you stop and look at what your life demonstrates you're committed to. Don't write fantasies. Don't write low priorities. Don't write things that you think you should, or hear in your head, I ought to be doing this. I'm not doing this. Why am I not doing this? Write only things you're certain about. When I first wrote my first mission statement or love list, I wrote down something my life demonstrated that I knew in my heart that I wanted to do, and that was I wanted to travel the world. I wrote down that I wanted to overcome my learning problems. I didn't write something that was, super outrageous yet. I just wrote down that. Then I wrote down also that I wanted to study these things called universal laws, because I got introduced to them by Paul Bragg. And I knew I wanted to overcome my health problems. I wanted to study healing, learn about that. I wanted to learn. I never thought I was going to be intelligent, didn't think I'd ever be able to even read until I met Paul Bragg. And when I got that, there was a door that opened, a deep void that was sitting there for many years, 10 years maybe, all of a sudden, came to the surface because I just didn't think it was possible. I subordinated to an outer influence, go by what authorities told me I couldn't, you'll never read, write, or communicate. And then somebody came along that all of a sudden said, that there's nothing stopping you from anything you want to do in life that's important to you. Boom, I had a shift. That's one of the reasons I want to do breakthrough in prophecy in the programs, because I know if I'm around you in 26 hours in breakthrough and 98 hours in prophecy, I have a very high probability of getting something across, like that gentleman did for me that night. In 1 hour, he did it for me. If I got 98, I'm bound to get something across. So I'm a firm believer of doing that. But start with what you know and let what you know grow. And don't try to fill up thousands of things. Just get to the priorities that you know. What you're absolutely certain your life demonstrates you're committed to. That's where you start. When owning the traits in others to equilibrate the mind, how do you know material or physical traits like wealth and beauty? Wealth comes in different forms. So if you see somebody that's got financial wealth, your wealth may be relationship wealth, social wealth, intellectual property wealth, spiritual awareness wealth, children wealth. You may have also social connections, the people you know, the social networking you have is not, or physical beauty you might have as wealth. Everybody's got wealth. In my prophecy program, I explain this genuine wealth and the 7 areas of wealth, and how to convert one form of wealth to the other, and how to make sure that you can transform all those forms of wealth into cash wealth. And that's a very beautiful science on how to do that. And that's what I'm elaborating in that program. I didn't get to do that in Breakthrough. That's more than I can cover, but I've got plenty of time now in Prophecy to do that. So I want to show you how to take whatever forms of wealth, because you're not missing anything. It's there, but you've got your values are creating the form it's in. I'm going to show you how to actually turn it into financial wealth. Here are 5 regrets of dying as a few people. I wish I had left myself be happier, more fulfilled. What that meant is I wish I had stuck to my highest priority and not lived by everybody else's expectations. I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. Well, those are the people that really contribute to your life, and not get distracted by people that you think are friends. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. That's not about getting your anger out. It's about being truthful about what's really in your heart. And I wish I hadn't worked so hard. That's doing a job that you're not inspired by. I don't know of anybody that's done something extraordinary that didn't mind working. I mean, President Carter in America has lived 94-something years old. He's one of the longest living presidents. He's worked every day. He's probably 7 days a week since he's really young. And working is not what kills you. Working doesn't give regrets. Working is something that's not meaningful, and not doing it with people you care about and sharing that fruits of that with people you care about. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I had the courage to live true to myself. That's living congruently by your highest values and not subordinating to others. Those are the things, and that's what Breakthrough and Prophecy is about, to make sure that doesn't show up, because those are completely because people are subordinating. In Prophecy, I want you to be a leader. I don't want you to subordinate and be part of the conformity. And I have a video that I show on conformity that is mind-blowing. It basically shatters how important it is to be fitting in. People fit in, they don't get much done. Better to attend, it says here, is it better to attend a few breakthroughs before attending Prophecy, or better to absorb it? That's all dependent on you. I've seen people go from Breakthrough to Prophecy to Experience to the training program, all the way to an Edifice program, all within about a 6-month period. I've seen other people do a breakthrough and do 2 or 3 breakthroughs and then come a Prophecy. You know, it's the speed is what you want it to. I always say time times intensity gives results. It's what you're ready for and what you wanted to give yourself permission to do. I'm the kind of guy, when I see something that's wise, I want it. I want to take action on it. I don't want to sit and, hang around with it. I'd move on it. But you have to let your heart be your guide. Not my opinion or anybody else's opinion. You got to go inside. If you really, really, really want to be at the Prophecy program, get there. If you really don't let me push you into it. Don't let anybody push you into it. Take your time and go to Breakthrough as many times. I have people who have been to Breakthrough 60 and 70 times. And they've done extraordinary things, but they've also been to Prophecy and Experience and many of the other programs. The people, it's been my experience, the people who need it the most do it the least, and the people that need it the least do it the most. And I've proven that in my program. I see it in my seminars. The highest, greatest achievers that do the most amazing things are the ones engaged and are attending and growing and thirsty for learning. And I'm thirsty for sharing. So there's no way you can hang out with me without getting, a mouthful. People say learning from you is like drinking from a fire hydrant. And I think there's probably some truth in that. Let's see here, if I can find another one here. These are about asking questions. June kind of bit early. I think that's it. I think we've got what the questions I see on here for some reason. Hold on, there's another one here. How can I move past criticism to be able to release writing projects on a blog and stop feeling so contracted? Well, anytime you subordinate to anybody else, their opinion is going to matter more than yours. So what you do is you identify the person that you're frightened of criticism from, identify what trait, action, inaction they display or demonstrate that you admire in your perceptions, and then go find out where and when you display it. Go apply the method on it, because I guarantee if you're intimidated by sales, in the Prophecy program, I'm explaining to you that if you're intimidated by somebody that you're about to sell, it's because you put them on a pedestal. You do the Demartini method, level the playing field, no intimidation. If you're going out on a relationship date and you're a little intimidated and you're frightened and you're worried about being rejected, do the method on them, balance the field, and you'll go out there and just be yourself. You want to be yourself. You want to be loved for yourself. Use the method to take people off the pedestal and put yourself back in power again. That's what Breakthrough is about. Prophecy I'm going to be doing. I'm going to show you exactly what the steps are in that to do it, because if you don't, you're going to probably contract. And contracting is a feedback mechanism to let you know that you're subordinating to some outer authority and not giving yourself permission to be you. And I want you to be you. And that's why I put the method together. And, it's one thing to intellectualize the method and say, well, I've done that. I've been to Breakthrough. Yeah, I've done that. I have people that they missed it. It's like they missed the whole program because they thought, oh, I did that now. I can click off that I've done that. if you've really done it and you really got the message, you'd be applying it. You'd be realizing what it can do for your life, and you'd be moving forward because you realize this is a pathway of empowering your life. So that's why I'm interested in doing that. And I see that up on the screen here, I don't know if you have it, but I have it. There's a screen that came up called the Prophecy One Experience. I mentioned it throughout the hour or so. I'm going to take a moment to mention it because I want you to take advantage of it. It's an opportunity. You know, I was in the 1980s, early 80s, I was searching for seminars. I've been going to seminars very young. I mean, I've been attending seminars since 18. And I was looking for a seminar that I could do and to help me grow in my mind. I wanted to grow it in business. I wanted to do all 7 areas. But I kept finding seminars that were individual seminars in one area, or maybe business and finance, or maybe relationship and spirituality. But I didn't find congruency. Every time I go to another seminar, I get a different leader, different teacher, had a different model, and it was hard to juggle those with others, and sometimes they'd contradict and they'd have different views, and it was frustrating. And I searched for something that was more comprehensive, and I realized there was nobody out there doing it. It was up to me to do it. And so I started out doing one-day seminars called the Human Quest series. And the Human Quest series was, the human quest for mental understanding, wisdom, and genius, the human quest for business success and achievement, the human quest for financial independence and freedom, the human quest for family love and intimacy, the human quest for social power and leadership, the human quest for physical health and wellness, and the human quest for spiritual immortality and truth. I put those things together, and then somebody said, well, we got to travel, across the country to come for a one-day program. Can you put them all together? It's easiest to travel. And I went, okay. So I piled them all together and put them in one, made sure they were all congruent. There was no contradictions. And that way, in literally 98 hours, I can deliver the entire thing. It's 2,000 pages of material. This particular one that it's about to do, this new round of doing it, I'm going to be going through it in this new format. I'm going to be sharing more from speaking and a little bit less from the reading process. And I'm going to we're going to blow people's minds. We're going to have Google up. We're going to explore. And whoever's there, whoever participates is about to go on an experience of mastering their life and looking and empowering all 7. I just mentioned in Breakthrough the starting of that. You started your love list. I mentioned in master planning about making sure that you talk about master planning your life, because otherwise other people will run your life. I just did on this seminar highlights, some just tiny highlights coming from the prophecy about how to do these 7 areas. But I want you to actually take them and put them and run with them. I want you to expand it. And I can do that if I'm with you for that many hours. In 1 hour, I still can't do it, but 98 hours, I could do a hell of a lot. And so I want you to consider joining me on that. I want you to come and learn how the mind works, how the brain works, how the conscious and subconscious and other than conscious minds are working, how to communicate that way, how to wake up genius, how to speed read. We're going to go over how to maximize your mental powers. I think I've done pretty good with my mind. And I know that I can share what I've done. And if nothing else, you got that. And I know it works because I'm living it. And I know I've got a pretty amazing capacity to absorb information, retain information, and share it and use it. So I know I'm going to share what I do and how I do it. And I want to share that with you on that program. Then I want to talk about all my 46 years of studying mind-body relationship and healing, and why we create these illnesses and what's the psychology behind them. Because I believe that instead of having excess of organs and deficiency of drugs, it's wiser for you to master your life and use the method. The method will prevent some of those problems from happening in the first place. And then I want you to understand the relationship dynamic, the relationship equation. And I want you to know what to do because I have people that come up and says, well, how do I find my soulmate? And they don't realize that they have unconscious wounds that are making sure they don't get involved in somebody, and to make sure that they've got people that they're avoiding to protect themselves. I show them how to dissolve that, and I show them how to make sure that they are present and how to basically realize that their values are creating the forms that is, either in one or many people. I explain to what that mate is and what the purpose of that is and what it's trying to teach you and how it's helping you become authentic and what the children are and how they're disowned parts. I expand on this thing and we go in depth on that. It's the most comprehensive relationship day. And then I go into social leadership, and that's an incredible power day about the illusions about society. There's so much stuff out there about how people are supposed to be, but behind the scenes, another world lives. I want you to know what's really going on instead of the fantasies and political games that are being played on you, the propaganda that you're subordinating to. Once you understand what's really going on in morals and ethics and how human behavior really works in society and how to lead and influence and expand and own both sides of yourself and participate in the mastery of yourself. I also want you to build your wealth. And I want you to be able to do methodically strategic systems, same procedures I did to become financially independent. I want you to be able to show you what to do. No quick get rich schemes, no gambling and risky leveraging systems, just methodical systems that will get you wealthy. I mean, I'm not the hare, I'm the tortoise. I'm the guy that methodically goes and gets the job done. I want to show you how to do it so you don't take risks and leverage yourself and then lose your cash. And make sure you have groundedness. And I want to share a whole day on just how to build wealth. And the next day I'm going to talk about immortality and the evolution of spirituality. So most people don't even realize that they're subordinating to stages of moral development, stages and components of the religious experience, instead of the real synthesis and synchronicity of opposites, the real divine connection that the person has, the real prophet that's sitting inside us. I want you to have that part. I want you to be able to be the leader in that, not be subordinate to that. Otherwise, you're going to be worried about whether you've been good or bad, or what's going to happen in the afterlife and stuff like that, which is childish in some respects. Then I wanted to also be able to get you grounded on the last day where we make you get down to business. So you make sure you get your profit back and make sure you make money on this program. Between the financial day and the business day and the leadership day, I'm absolutely certain that it will be an investment, not a cost. And I've been doing it now 29 years. And actually with all the 7 individual programs, it goes back into the early 80s. So it's 30-something years I've been teaching this material and refining it and updating it week after week after week. And I want to share it. You have a big textbook when you leave. So I want you to come and join me on this. I think I have one coming up in Houston in about a week or so. I've got one coming up in December, I think, in South Africa, or no, in Australia. I think I have one in June coming up in South Africa. I don't know the exact locations, but I think it's got, yeah, they're here. There's one in April in Houston. It's right in front of me. One in June in Johannesburg, and November to December in Sydney. And that's it. We're going to do 3 this year. And sometimes I do another one in London. There'll be another one coming up, but that's not till I think next year. But all I know is that I want you to take advantage of this, because I know that if you got anything out of this little hour or so we spent, you got something out of Breakthrough. Now just catalyze that, multiply it about 3 to 5 times that, and that's what you're going to get out of this next program. And if you're ready to grow and expand and stretch, it was Poincaré that had a master who was teaching him how to play music and the piano when he was a kid. And he went to the first class, and the teacher made him do this very difficult process, and he couldn't do it, and he felt frustrated, and he wanted to cry, and he ran home, and he was angry. And then he had to go back because his father made him go back again. He went to the class, and the teacher did it again. And every day, each lesson was more expanded and pushing him. He didn't think he actually knew it, because he was living in the limitations of his conscious mind and not realizing the power of his unconscious, as Jung said. And then at the very final class of teaching him how to play a piano, Poincaré all of a sudden was mind blown, because all of a sudden he was brought to tears when he realized that he could play the piano, because he didn't realize how much he absorbed and how much he got. I want you to be able to play the piano and be able to play the harmony of your life. Your voice is the instrument upon which you play the symphony of your life. And if you master your clarity of your vision, clarity of your mission, clarity of your internal dialogue and your message to the world, then it's amazing what will happen. Because those with clarity rule, and those with unclarity and don't know where they want to go and don't know how they're going to get there and don't know where they are and don't know who they are, they're the ones that are basically going to be part of the sheep instead of the shepherd. So if that's of interest to you, come join me. Make it there. You got a week to the one in Houston. You got a few months to go to Johannesburg, and you got quite a few months to go to Sydney. Yeah, I think you can pay in advance, and the sooner you sign up, the lower the cost. As you approach the prices go up, and obviously when you're on a live seminar like this, the prices are even more special. So take advantage of the special. Take advantage of my love of learning, and I want to share, and because I'm absolutely certain you're gonna be mind blown in the programs. And take what I just shared on this session today and listen to it again. If we can get that out to you, make sure you get to listen to it again, and come back to the Breakthrough Experience and let me help you own the traits, the greats, and help you do the Demartini method on yourself, so you can realize you're worthy of love, and no matter what you've done. Many people think they're making mistakes in life, but they don't, except when they compare their actions to other people's values. And they think other people make mistakes when they compare other people's actions to their values. But we're not here to do that. We're here to compare our own actions to our own highest values. And that's the key of mastery. That's what we're going to be doing in prophecy. And I want you to take advantage of that. And I just thank you for joining me on this session. I wanted to do something right after this break that I just did. and because I want to catalyze people. Because sometimes people, they go to a seminar and they think, oh, that's it. I'm done. I did that. You know, I went to Landmark. I went to this program. I went to that program. And it's like they're checking a list and they've been there. But what matters is not that you attended. What matters is you applied. And what matters is that you're continuing to apply and you're catalyzing it. You know, it was Aristotle that spent 20 years with Plato. From 17 to 37, he sat and he learned. And almost every great master in almost every great field took advantage of those opportunities. And so I'm just telling you to take advantage of the opportunity. Your heart knows what's true for you. Stick to the heart. If it's for you, get there. If it's not for you, fabulous. Thank you for joining this special session. Thank you for being at the Breakthrough Experience. I look forward to seeing you whenever I see you next. Take advantage of this opportunity. I think there's a special on there, as I said, and I look forward to seeing you in whatever city that I get to meet with you again. Thank you for joining me and spending this time with me. I love you, and we'll see you at the next perfect time. Thank you.